Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Masha Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Masha and I are speaking with Tovit Neizer about crafting product stories. Tovit is a business storyteller at Yellowbricks. So let's dive in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? Happy to be
Wonderful. Hello, Masha.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Tovit. Welcome to the show. And I always have to mention it, when we have fellow Torontonian on the show, right?
That's right. That's right. You got to call it out.
I have to call it out. So Tovit is living in Toronto. And the first time I met her was in person, and which is really rare these days. So welcome to the show, Tovit. And one of the things that intrigued me about your story is that you are a storyteller, and it's not necessarily, it's a business storyteller. I mean, you also wrote a book, a fiction book. So you're actually a storyteller, which we a bit connected on that as well. But you are a storyteller for businesses, and you told me, correct me if I'm wrong, you're helping businesses to tell their story, to find what their story is and help them tell it properly. And in the product perspective, I was thinking, wow, this is something we have to talk with Tovit on the show, because product managers were told all the time, you have to know how to tell a story.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So, and I'm not talking about user stories. User stories is something technical. It's something different. I'm talking about, in general, the story of the product. Why are we here?
Right. You got to sell the vision, right?
Right.
Sell the dream.
You have to sell the vision. You have to define the problem and sell the problem, etc., etc. So I was thinking, wow, let's talk with Tovit specifically about that. And then I also told Tovit, come up with some framework or some tool, because that's what we're all about, right?
Right.
So let's see what we're coming up with. But first, before all of that, please introduce yourself, Tovit. Tell our audience who you are and how did you get to what you're doing.
Okay, wonderful. So, as you said, a business storyteller, and I work mostly with tech companies, tech startups, on finding and carving out and sharpening their business story so they can get the right leads and magnet them towards them. So they'll know what they're doing and they'll just come because they'll see the need. I own a consultancy boutique. It's called Yellowbricks. It started in Israel. It's still in Tel Aviv, but there is a branch here in Toronto. And I help them with strategies. So we find a story, and once we have it, we work on the content strategy, meaning where will you find these people and where will you deliver that message, be it a YouTube channel, be it, I don't know, printed magazines, online conferences, in personal and stuff like that. And I also hold workshops. In between, I mentor at the Founders Institute in the Toronto chapter, New York, and Philadelphia. And I started now on Techstars as well, and I love it. But going backwards to my history, as you mentioned, so I did publish a novel, but I started as a real storyteller, as a journalist, in-depth and magazine. And I think that laid the foundations of how to extract the story, how to actively listen, how to ask the right question, to get the right answers, even from people that you think, these people never talk, they don't share anything. But having enough experience and a lot of experience listening and waiting and just being and feeling very comfortable in pauses, long pauses, at the end, something comes out. And that's where you want to be. That's where you want your pen and paper ready to get all the gold. Then I started a content creation company. So there's a lot to do with that. Kind of reverse engineering my career. I see that every time there was something with stories. So I created original content and also content for companies. Then I got hit by the startup bug. So I founded two of my own, and then I joined a third one. The first two were software, and then I joined the hardware. I was the VP Business Development and Marketing. That was acquired, that startup, and then I went back to helping others. And I feel it's like being I'm like Charlie Wonka. I have access to all the candies, so every day I work with a different company, but in in exciting mode of, okay, tell me what you do. And many times it's very technical and dry and even, dare to say, boring. But then we dive into that with the techniques that I'll show you afterwards, and we kind of find the essence. And once we have it, we understand where we'll find the relevant people and how will we talk to them and what will we say and share. So and that's it. And yes, the novel is in Hebrew. I think Moshe has the opposite thing. He has one in English. So his family, you said your grandparents or your parents?
Everyone, no, my parents and my siblings and my in-laws, they all want it to be translated to Hebrew.
So I'm on the flip side. I just got it. It's starting the translation is in process. So Q2, I'll have it in English.
Excellent. Looking forward to reading that.
Nice, very nice. That's a great journey, and you've gone through many different things, which we always see a very helpful for our careers to see different things and experience different things in order to create like a holistic understanding of business. But some of the things you mentioned over there also resonate very highly to us as product managers, specifically about listening and creating that empathy, and how do we find the people that we need to talk with. So first, how do we find the people, and then how do we listen to them to actually get the essence of their problems? Because in product management, we always say the customer is always right, but they don't know what they're talking about. So,
wow.
well, I've said that. Well, and what I mean by that is that they will tell you the problem that they have, but they will not tell you why they have this problem. So they will not go into the depth of the reasons, the root cause for the problems. And also they will tell you the solution they can think about, but they don't know what solutions are available out there because they're not technical.
Right.
So if we listen only to their solution and we do what they ask us to do, we usually don't go far enough and we don't create the right solution.
Right.
So they're right. They know what they know and they know their problems, but we have to look much deeper to understand why do they have this problem? What is the real problem? And then to look with our engineers and designers to see what's available out there to resolve it in the best way that will actually solve this problem. Because, we talked before that we're 80s kids and we didn't have cell phones, but no one imagined cell phones back then like they are today. Right. So if we would have told people, oh, we want this phone, we want this, we would never have said we want an iPhone that works like that, right?
That's right. That's right. They don't. Customers don't know all the possibilities of how to solve something.
Exactly. So they're always right, but we don't have to listen to them. We have to listen.
Right. One thing that comes to mind, and I think it's from my experience writing the novel, I brought a lot of the journalism skills into it because, you can take that. I mean, I can leave journalism, but it doesn't really leave me. And I started writing the novel, and I remember that I was writing and I had some characters in mind and some plot. But then I was kind of procrastinating, and at one point I said, okay, I think I need to go backwards to journalism. The main character in my book is a Filipino caregiver, which is very interesting and intriguing. And there are so many in Tel Aviv. That's where I got the spark, but I knew nothing about their life. And it was kind of presumptuous of myself to think I can write that. So I started looking for them in the streets, and I interviewed 50. And at one point, I mean, I did not know at the beginning that I'm going to interview 50. And my spouse said, I think you're just kind of delaying writing, kind of falling in love again with journalism.
Finding ways to slow down.
Yeah. And I know other researchers from academia told me, this is a PhD work. I mean, this is not a novel. Are you going to do that, like nonfiction? But the fact is that in the beginning, I spoke with some and they told me their story. I'm not saying like, I'm not quoting you that they do not know what they do, which is harsh. But in the beginning, I didn't really know the questions. I didn't know the answers I was looking for. But then it's a numbers game. It's harsh to say that, but you have to have a lot of the same thing to find some uniqueness and the unique voice. In my case, it was the character. In the product managers, it could be the root cause or the problem or more insights that when you start and embark on that journey, you don't really know what you're looking for. But once you have enough of the same, I'm not saying this is the same person, but the title, in my case, the Filipino caregiver, in yours is, I don't know, a
Persona.
yeah,
It's a
a persona of some
Mm-hmm.
specific, but the
Yeah.
same thing. Maybe
Absolutely.
the same domain, maybe the same geography, but having something in common, but different individuals.
Yeah.
Having
Yep.
enough of
Yep.
the same would kind of, thing would spark, thing would
Yeah.
rise up, and you'll see some commonality there. And with that, you can start working and then go further into, I don't know, the 10 people that you felt like are most vocal, verbal, that you can take something and extract something
Yeah.
which is more meaningful.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you come up, as I say, one of my takes is you have to ask dumb and stupid questions, like really, really stupid, and feel very comfortable in your
Mhm.
not knowing anything.
Right.
Same
Right.
happens when you start. So it's
Mhm.
like, as usual, it's a funnel. So you have 50 of the same, but individuals, if it
Mhm.
makes sense. And then from that stems 10 of the good ones that you kind of feel that I can have a 1.5 hours of in-depth call with them, just
Mhm.
like a research,
Yeah. Yeah.
academia, journalism.
Again,
Yep.
lots of parallels there to what we do in product, because
Right.
we don't want to listen to only one person, because then we'll develop
Yep.
to only one person. We try to create personas. 50 is a lot. So we always get in this question about, how many people is enough to interview
Yep.
so we know what we need to know. The numbers over the years are going down, unfortunately. And it started when I started these questions, I was told 12. Now I'm being told 5. And I'm like, okay, maybe. So it's somewhere in between, I think.
It really depends, but also how new are you? If you're a junior and you have this task of all the companies on your shoulder, it's a new startup, but you're also new because they couldn't hire someone, I don't know, with more experience. That's, only 10 if you're new to the field. If it's a new field, if it's a new startup that's just inventing something,
Right.
that's a risk. Unless you say that you come from the domain or it's a new domain, but you bring in, let's say there's no startups in the journalism world, but you've been a journalist for 5 or 10 years and you've been part of that. So you're one of the personas and you bring in a lot of experience. Although your own experience is like the lenses are twisted because
Of
you're not very
course.
objective.
Of course.
Plus, it's a matter of complexity of what you're trying to solve. If you're trying to solve something that maybe a lot of people have, that a lot of people are familiar with, it's fairly easy to understand, you might not need as many people. But if it's complex, niche, you really need to like dive into it.
Yeah.
So that might be another way to think about
But
it.
just remember with an asterisk, I had 50 because I actually think that I was procrastinating because I was so afraid to invent a voice of a human being that I've like never experienced because
Yeah.
it's
Right.
a whole
Yeah.
different thing.
One last thought about that. I'm almost feeling that maybe it's a good thing for product managers to learn and experience journalism a bit, because it sounds to me that a lot of what you explained and experienced is actually a very valuable lessons to product managers. How do I find the people? How do I do this research? How do I condense the what I'm hearing from them into a specific story, etc. So
And how do I not speak for a
It's the
while?
active listening.
yeah, the active listening.
One of my workshops is active listening, and I teach the audience how to be comfortable just shutting up.
Yes.
Sitting in your, it's funny. When I was in the army, in the military service in Israel, I worked with the unit psychologist, And he, instead of saying the last word every time, at the end of a conversation, it was kind of, strange because we were just two people in an office and the questions were always the dynamic of not the best psychologist, like, how do you feel? And then there is a pause of 5 minutes. And I'm like, I started okay, but maybe now it's not because he's still waiting. And he never talked. So he was never saying the last word, but he was actually,
observing, right?
okay, yeah. And like, was that a right question? Was I wrong? Am I not that well? Oh my God. And then you kind of, it freaks you out. But you have to feel comfortable, as he did, to an extent that the other side really get that assurance that you after what they're saying and not yourself, that you're here to listen.
Yeah.
And that's important. And that's where people start sharing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think another point of that is product managers go in, sometimes product managers and people trying to solve problems go immediately into solutioning. And so they hear things and then you immediately go, I know enough based on what you've told me so far to start solutioning. And that's where active listening comes into like, maybe I need to gather more information before I get to and really know the problem before I start to solve it.
Yes.
How wonderful would it be instead of you saying, "Oh, Eureka, I have a solution," to give them like an extra 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then something would click there and they will say, I can connect the dots.
Even if you allow them to pause, they go, oh, there is this other thing, because that's something else I've talked to, talking to customers. The more you poke into the problem space, they're like, well, there is this other thing. And that's where I kind of going back to what Mache was thinking or speaking to, like they think they know the problem completely, but there's some other things that are symptoms that they're experiencing, but they're not always accounting for.
They're also not trained as product managers to find these. So they're trained like us as human beings, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's why I always like try to think about my problems and the things I'm working on, even not product, as a product. So this way I will be able to dive a bit deeper into it. But let's move into how to write a story, because I think we can talk about this all day long. And, we promised in the beginning to focus on, telling your story as a product manager, right? So we know all of these soft skills are really, really important. So that's part of it. But if we want to be more actionable and give our audience, a few tidbits or tools or whatever it is, a method to try to write their story and tell their story. And maybe you don't need to write it, right? I'm just saying, like, to me in my head, I have to write it first and then I'll be able to tell it. But where would you start? What would you do?
So excellent. I love it. In my storytelling I have a storytelling workshop, and it's usually for the purpose of marketing and selling, for sales, but it's the same here. We start with there are a few exercises, but specifically for your question, we have a thing that I bring up a slide with objects. Anything you have in your office, I don't know, it could be a watch, it could be a phone, it could be like physical objects. And I ask them to tell me which one they are. And it's not limited to the photos that I bring and the images, but it could be, are you a pen? Are you a ruler? Are you, I don't know, a highlighter? Are you a tissue box? Are you a stapler? Are you anything, right? Then, I mean, in the beginning, they're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
I have the same reaction internally. I just don't show it.
I'm looking around my office to find something that I am.
But you know what? I think my desk is, well, today is disorganized, but usually maybe it's not enough. So go around and see the keychain and go to the kitchen. There's a knife. Sorry. There are scissors. Usually I have these in the office because that's what I am. There's a eraser. There's a pencil sharpener. Think more. Go to the bedroom. Go to the, I don't know, toothbrush or just dental floss. What are you? And why is that? First of all, creativity. We want as much creativity, and we want all the barriers, all the fences down. Anything is okay. We talked about dumb questions before. So here the same. Just give me something bizarre, an object that I know, but bizarre enough that you would say and equate it to a person. And it's not a person so much as the essence. think of yourself as a product manager, but also you rightly said, Michelle, about my career. There is a thread there. So think of, I mean, you were not probably born as a PM, but what did you do before? And like the student jobs that you had while in, I don't know, in junior high, what did you do? You were a scout leader, I don't know, skating instructor. And what's in it about all these things? And try to connect, and how do they connect to that object? And I'll tell you, I mean, as I mentioned, mine is scissors and sometimes erasers, because when I meet someone, the essence, the core of what I do when I work with the companies is that I listen to their story and then I start cutting very rudely at times, but I cut through the fluff, through the, okay, there's nothing here, there's what is the meaning? So we cut and we cut and we cut deep. Maybe it's a dagger, I don't know, because it's tapped. But and afterwards, or at times when they bring the story, on when we work on their online, on in-person presentation, when they have a conference, they come with a deck, they come with a story, and all the slides are there. And I'm with my huge eraser, and we start by erasing. So anyone in that workshop starts thinking about what they are, then they have a bit of time to kind of understand for themselves, go backwards to their career, and then present it in a sentence. Let's do that. Let's do that. What are you guys? M&M. Motion.
Ooh, yeah, that's a very good question. So I'm also looking now around my office, but when you were talking about it, I was thinking more about a robot that is building stuff.
Okay.
Because I like to build stuff. I like to be creative. I like to put things together. I don't know if the robot is the right thing, but it's an object, right? It's not a person. It's not an animal. It's an object there. But that's the thing for me always, that I always like to put things together, whether it was art, or it was products like in software development, or it's a book, like I write a story, so I put together a story. So to me, that's the thing.
What were you before PM? I mean, it's not.
I was in software development. I was an engineer for 20 years.
Robot, you see?
Yeah.
And I love organization. So a robot to me is like, it's organized.
I'll go a step further with you before we dive into maths. Now, see how it could serve you. Now that you're a robot, this is part of your brand and you can use it. Or let's say you want to give something when it's Christmas and you want some swag of yourself. The swag could be a small robot, because this is part of my values. And you work something around that, which is more holistic, and it serves you and the others to understand what's your value and what you bring into the table. These are my core values, and it's easy to remember because I'm a robot. But when you see a robot, you immediately associate what you have from that to you, to what you do. Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I don't have it on me, but I was thinking I'm a magnifying glass. Before I was a PM, I worked in accounting and finance. So looking at numbers, data, building reports, and doing that kind of stuff, where you have to dig into numbers. You've got to investigate why something happened. Spent many years doing that, and that's kind of what I'm also doing as a PM. I'm investigating stuff, understanding problems. So yeah, I need to get a magnifying glass in here.
Exactly. Think of that kind of every now and then when you have a meeting or whatever, you meet other people and then you hold it, or it's a symbol in the background and people are curious, or you even explain, and later on they kind of think of you and they see that and they, refer from one to another. It's easy. It's easier. Again, putting people in boxes like the robot.
It's funny because Matt and I had this ongoing AI tension, because Matt loves AI and I kind of am worried about AI. And I think that maybe because I'm a robot, I'm kind of like, I am the AI, so I don't want an AI to replace me. And with Matt is using AI as a tool to help him to magnify things and to look into things.
You see how the conversation changes now? Because we all bring more picturesque things, and it's more, I'm not saying literal, but it's more visual and it's helpful. Another thing that we can do once we have it, that's another tool of telling the PM story, is using it on LinkedIn. I'll dive into that in a second, but I heard your very interesting episode with Chris Massim, and he was talking about sharing your story, but the impact throughout the career. Each section, say he's doing he's headhunting or doing
he's in England. Yep.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. But in addition to that, or he said that per each career path, a career section, you will write what have you achieved, like impact wise and numbers and facts. I'm saying let's go up to the top of the profile where you have the one-liner, which is the most difficult thing to write, and it changes with time. It has to. And also the about, the blurb. That's what I do with companies, and sometimes for them, for their seniors and like management, we work on that. We have to correlate that with the metaphor that we talked about. This is where, like Chris is talking about impact, I'm talking about something which is more captivating, memorable, sticky. Let's use metaphors there. That's where all the traits of the PM would be exhibited, but let's try to do that creatively and in a way that would be more, would leave more impact on people. Using that metaphor could be a good place if it works, if it makes sense. But even if not, as Moshe said, I like to write the story before you write it, you don't necessarily use it, but then you have that sense of, now I understand why I'm doing all these roles that I'm doing throughout my career. For like decades, I'm doing different things. It feels like, your mother says, keep that job. Why don't you? But then you are doing the same thing, but for different organizations and domains, but you're bringing the same essence. You're bringing the same Moshe or Matt to different places. And that's who you are. That's what we want to see in the about. And then later on, we'll dive into what the impact and specifically what benefits did the organizations that I work for gained. What did I bring per each? So
that's fascinating. So it's almost like writing the story of who you are. Like we're so busy in our current thing, whatever that current thing is, we're not always thinking holistically about like where we've been and what we were doing and how that translates always to what we're doing today. So I could see it's a storyboard of our lives.
Exactly.
And we're not always cognitive of the similarities between what we're doing. So I got a million thoughts going through my head right now. But I think that's the point, right? This is creative exercise. This is to get the mind working abstractly.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. So if we are thinking about the product, do we do the same thing? Do we take now, let's say our product is, and let's pick something familiar that everyone is familiar with.
I love Trello. I love HubSpot.
Sure, let's pick Trello. Yes.
Yeah, Trello.
So if we pick Trello, and this is our product, let's say it's our product. So we are, very passionate about it. We want to sell it to the world. We want to, not from a marketing perspective, but like we are the product managers for that. So what will be the process now? Do we also pick up an object and say, what Trello is this object, and then find a way to?
Definitely. I mean, once you ask that, I'm like, what is Trello for me? What is Trello for me? I'm a user. I'm an active user. There are very few tools that I use, but I'm like addicted. It's part of my life. I have it for work. I have it for side hustles. I have it for my writing. Deadlines and chapters and procrastination and interviewing more and more people. And what about translation, etc. I have it for me and my spouse have it for managing the house, like dentist, mortgage. We have it for everything. I'm not really sure he's following his. That's why we have a WhatsApp group.
His cards aren't moving.
They aren't. And I'm like, what about that tick? You should mark. He's like, what? Where? What? I'm not really sure he was invited, but I mean, he was. Did he see the invite?
Yes.
So you have to understand what's the essence here. So it's not, you said it's not for marketing, but it has nothing to do with marketing. It's usability. Marketing has to do with product because we're thinking, what problem are we solving for our users? What is the pain? That's the question that the marketer would ask, but wouldn't it be the same as the product just to begin with? Before even, let's say we did not create Trello and we're thinking of, and within 10 days we'll do that. So we'll go out and we'll ask people, how do you manage your tasks and what do you do? I mean, I have so many so many papers around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why when I was introduced to that was my spouse saying, all these in Germany said Zettelach, like papers, Yiddish or German, and it's like everywhere you have it. And I'm saying, I'm a journalist. I used to write everything. I'm graphomanic. I have to see the paper. I have to hold it. It's like, put it in the computer. It's gonna get lost. You're gonna lose all the data. So it's an organizer. I'm on top of things, right? That's the biggest pain that
So
it
physical
solves.
object for you would be what? Post-it notes or something else?
Maybe the binder, the one that puts things, you know,
Mhm.
that plastic bag that you have all these folders inside. So it's an organizer. It's not just the paper, but we can think and dive. It's going deeper, but also zooming out. Like Matt said, zooming out on your career and thinking backwards why you did all the things you did. So we have to do this contradictory action to analyze and understand what the value that it brings. Thinking deep, what does it solve? And then looking very like bird's eye view on the action and what's the value that it brings.
With Trello, it's actually very interesting because I think they were the first product that introduced the Kanban board on a computer, where with that image of Post-it notes as a board that I can drag and drop and move around.
Right.
So after they introduced it, when I saw it first, I was like, "Oh wow, this is the same as I would do on a real board," right?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
And then after that, many other products followed suit and did the same.
And
so
you know,
now,
one of the things I really love is that action that you just described, that moving things. And you know, it's nerdy, but I love to see them underdone. I love to see that column piles up and like,
I know.
oh wow, this is
Very
great.
satisfied, of course.
It depends on the personality, but this is who I am. Wow.
I still have Post-it notes playing around. So
No, I think all of us do it. I do, I don't have in this office, I don't have enough well, you can't see it with this background, but I don't have enough walls actually to have a whiteboard. But this is something that we still kind of like, some of us, we still need that physical analog thing.
Yeah.
So should we try to pick up another example that is maybe harder? Because that seems like, because they already solved it in that way, we are leaning already towards that physical object, right? But if we are thinking about something else that does not solve it in very, physical way or something like that, or if we're thinking about a product that could have been, I don't know, reinvented, it's hard. I mean, it's hard to do it on the spot. I know.
Yeah.
I'm looking around my desk again, just at objects, just trying to think, just thinking, the pen.
Maybe let's go into like what everyone is talking about these days. Like, let's say ChatGPT.
Okay.
Like, which object is that going to be?
Because you asking whatever, it feels like going, I'm not Christian, but it feels like going to the church and saying everything and without being judged, because I could ask really stupid questions and I'm okay because it's fine. No one
There's
knows
no
what I
judgment.
ask. I mean, I guess everyone knows and they're actually using and mining my questions. So
Yeah.
next time I go to church. But in a way, so it's a secure, let's say, place that you can just ask things. It's a place where you come to gain knowledge, like a school maybe used to. So you ask a teacher and she teaches you, because you come up and they do all the work. The chat GPT brings up all the answers, right?
And you have to trust them that they know the answer.
Oh, yeah. And what does he do with the question? That's another question.
Trust everything.
Well, maybe that's why a place of worship might be a bit more suitable, because it's a belief. You have to believe them.
Oh wow. I'm thinking of what I said, and it goes a long way now.
Maybe we shouldn't go there. I don't know. But a confessional? No, that's a different one because it's not like you're telling ChatGPT all your sins. It's more like you're just asking questions, like you said.
Yeah.
Right.
I think like maybe like mentorship or some sort of guidance teacher position, kind of going back to the school mode. And you don't ask it everything. Like you are guarded in what you do ask. You should be at least, but you can ask it anything. And I even had conversations with it, through its voice capabilities, to where I've asked questions. It then asks me additional questions, and it begins to learn from me about what I'm exactly looking for. So I've actually had the voice conversation back and forth with it. I have to admit, it's very cathartic. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but and this is the AI and kind of enthusiast coming from me, but
that's also like I immediately went to the trust issue, and you immediately went into the learning.
Right.
You see, so we applied our both prejudices and biases towards AI.
And I'm thinking, how crazy is this?
Yes.
Yeah. Just two people in the room talking about that.
Because I feel so scared now, actually, I'm using it a lot, but I am scared because I hear what you're saying. And I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I'm thinking of the trust issue, but think of that exercise like tandem sky jump, that you trust someone and you give the whole thing, you give yourself, you put your life in their hands on that parachute. Like, teach me. And I trust you completely. And I give you all my historical data or thoughts or questions, and you have access to everything. And now you leading the way, and I trust you not to crash us too. I mean, my life is more important than the computers, but that's
a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one too. And even going back to the trust, like as I'm being asked, I ask a question, ChatGPT then ask another question to learn more about me. I have to trust because it's wanting to learn about me.
So I would prefer the one that has a real person in it, and we do it tandem. And yours is one that doesn't have a person in it, that do it in tandem, kind of. Like it's maybe. So maybe let's take that. Let's take the one that is a tandem parachute that is all automated. We can also do like a car, like a Tesla, that is fully automated. But let's do more of the parachute because this is a bit more like exciting. And let's say, okay, so we're taking that as an object, and now how do we tell the story of that product from that?
To our colleagues internally?
Yes, yes. So I'm the product manager of ChatGPT, and I identify this object as this is what ChatGPT is, and now I want to craft this story to tell a story.
So I guess we'll start by getting everyone on board and excited. So like that board of inspiration, I'll bring some bits of, I don't know, Tom Cruise flying off, jumping off, something, getting them excited and pumped, putting them in the context, bringing them into the context of where we are, what we could do for others, who are our users, what's the ground, like, what's the setting? Answer all the 5. Who are our users? Us, for them. Why are we doing that? Where are we doing that? Where are we located? Sci-fi, Western, I don't know, film noir. Give them some visuals. Why, when, where, who, what, right? All the questions are for journalists, but it's basic for your job as well. And then we start talking about the context. What are the values? What are we solving? And breaking down. So we start by getting them pumped and in that area. And then I would actually add some game or activity to get them into that, kind of roll their sleeves and present what we're doing. But as always, in a conversation, you want them to be part of it. Like not just saying, this is what we're doing, but this is the new thing. But now we start creating it together and getting all the voices, because as you're researching your persona, you also want your peers and colleagues or employees on board in a way that they're not feeling like someone is just, giving them a final fact, but it's a process as it is. at
Right.
that stage.
Right. Collaboration is important here.
Yeah, to get them
Mhm.
into like on board.
Right. Right. Now, what about because I've heard other people also talking about, telling your stories and stuff like that. And usually they go back to the how do you tell a story in fiction, which is begin, middle, and end with inciting incident and, a hero and a villain and stuff like that. Do you use that method as well as part of telling the story, or you don't think this is really needed?
It's something that I teach and something that I present, but it's not a must because there's one slide that I tell people, if you want to sleep, just please stay awake for this slide and that's it. You're off. I mean, it's okay. It's early in the morning. Just take one slide. And that's a triangle of you, the audience, and the essence, right? You have to understand who's the audience. It's a different story. It doesn't have to be the plot with a protagonist and someone's coming and helping you and there's a villain. And sometimes it's just a flat line. This is where it started. Medias res, like in the middle of things. And that's it from point A to point B. And sometimes it's just twisted and it goes around with curves. It has to take into consideration who you're addressing it to, where they are mentally, where they are physically, where they are now, who's the audience, what makes them scared or excited. That's one thing that definitely shapes the story. And another thing is what's the aim here? I mean, are we trying to sell it internally, externally? Are we trying to raise money? Are we trying to convince our boss to put more money, invest more money into this new Trello or ChatGPT? And now that we know it, we cannot shift the lens and we tell a different story. It's totally different if you want to get your team on board something, or you want to talk with, I don't know, young kids to learn about the product.
Right.
So these are the things. And then, I mean, I love formulas. It's great and it's helpful, but we have to stay agile and flexible and creative. So there are the things that we know, and then there is knowing that it doesn't matter or it changes. And the people who matter, it's just like writing for paper. It really depends who's the audience. If it's a left or right audience, if it's more magazine and trashy, if it's more in-depth academia, Forbes, New Yorker, Washington Post, it's different. And then you see the title's different and the length differs. And it's a tabloid, it's a magazine. What do they want? Like, is that like nature, science? So they want to get, the professors are there to get more accredited and seem very professional or academia wise. And other places, it could be just, that's trash and it's fun and that's great. We just want people to be entertained. So these are the things. It's very simple, and it's mostly knowing that what you've learned could always change, and that's listening to reality, to things, to changes, adapt, agile.
Yeah. So if I try to summarize it, the object and the essence of the object is the same, unless, of course, we pivot with the product and all that stuff. But once we found what the product is, the real problem and whatever it is, usually the object will be the same and the essence of that object is the same, and how we use that to craft our story. But and then the context might change as time goes by, but the way we tell the story depends on the audience and the goal we're trying to tell it.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect. Very cool. I really enjoyed this discussion because
this is awesome.
There's so many thoughts there and parallels there, and we did it now we know our object as well. So
I want to see your swag. I want to see the small robot.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I want to make sure, to me, it's always about yes, this is my first thought, and then I'm kind of rethinking myself, is that the right thing or not? So I probably got to think about it for the next week to see, is this really a robot? Because robot is also like a very strict thing, and it's like it does what you tell him to do. So
programmed.
Yeah. So there is pros and cons for every object that we pick. But I think
just do your very dry CV, going backwards to age 10, let's say. What was your first job or whenever you started, and see what value you brought and gained from each, and what are the commonalities. Maybe every time, every set of work, you did something very similar. And what you love doing, like writing, talking with people.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that. So you're right. I mean, we will need to have it as swag. So
Yeah.
You
absolutely.
should have a swag and an object to your podcast as well.
Well, we actually, you're right. We do have stickers. We made stickers. So
Yes.
but it's just
An
our logo.
object.
It's just our logo. So, and here I even have it on my phone right there. You see.
We'll have to, yeah. Oh, I do too. Yeah, I got mine.
And we have a t-shirt. So
Yep. Now we gotta get it. Yeah, we gotta get an object, I guess.
an
Right?
object.
Yeah.
And the microphone is probably not enough. So
Yeah, a mascot or something like that, right?
who knows? Maybe for our third anniversary and 100th episode, we will have to do rebranding and
Exactly. So then the object would dictate the logo, the colors. That's the whole essence, you see? That's how it helps companies understand who they are. The story then drips down
wow.
to everything.
Oh, now you got us thinking.
Amazing.
Now you got us thinking. This is great.
Now for Yellow Brick, what is the swag for Yellow Brick?
I just bought a thermal yellow thermal cup, and it burns me. My tongue burns because it keeps the beverage so hot.
Yes.
It does.
After 5 hours, I'm like, oh my God.
I know. When I first used those, I would drink the same cup of coffee for almost like 6 hours.
That's very bad on hydration, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But the swag would be the scissors. A left-hand scissors.
Yes. Left-hand scissors. Yeah, my daughter has them, and it took us a while to find them. So very nice. Tovit, thank you so much. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that we missed in this? Because it sounds simple, but it's not. And you really enlightened us here in this process. And thank you also for doing it very actively, like doing
this is fun.
The exercise. That was a lot of fun. So did we miss anything, or that's the essence of it?
Yeah, I think you're spot on the fact that it's not simple, and it could be very frustrating. I can share that it took me time to understand, because, I've been doing many, many things. People think I'm very, very old. I'm not that old. But I mean, what did you manage to do? So are you just not keeping the same thing? Then I realized I'm just taking the essence from place to place, because my curiosity landed me on doing that and that. But in practice, I'm doing quite the same thing, which I love. So it takes time. Especially, it's very difficult because when you do that on yourself to your career path, it could be judgmental, and it could be harsh. And you hear all these voices. Your teachers are saying, you should be that. And your mother, why don't you where's that gold watch? And like, Mom, this is not, not used.
Yeah, of course.
But it's something very important, because then everything falls into place.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Excellent. Tovit, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this was a pleasure.
This
Where
is
can
great.
People reach out to you?
There's the website, yellowbricks.net, and there's LinkedIn, Tovit Neizer. I think these are the best two ways.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Tovit, for coming to the show. It was really a pleasure. And now we want our audience to, after listening to this episode, send us your object and that defines you, and send us your story, or define your story,
that'd be a lot of fun.
Your product. That will be a lot of fun to do.
Wow, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Moshe. Thank you to all listeners, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you to all the listeners. We really appreciate the feedback and support. Please leave us a review to help others find the show on Apple or Spotify or anywhere else you're listening to the show.